Ladies and gentlemen, happy National Iced Tea Day today. We got two games. One that's pretty easy to let you know what happened so far in the series, Brooklyn and Milwaukee. 2-0 lead for Brooklyn there, heading back to Milwaukee. And then another that has a lot to break down into. So whether you're betting on the game, whether it's player props, or whether you're just straight out playing DFS on a two-game slate or showdown slate today, this analysis is going to be very important. Alrighty, so let's get right into it. Hey, if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe. We'll be live an hour before lock to answer your questions today, so come in then as well. But we can start with Brooklyn. We can go through that game first and then talk about game two for the Clippers and Jazz series. So Brooklyn, it's pretty simple. At one point, they had a 49-point lead in game two. And what can we break it down to? Well, first of all, that Kevin Durant is the best player on the planet, and you can go argue all you want. I'm not really into the whole argument conversation of these types of things. It's just as of this exact moment. Was he a year ago, 2 years ago? Probably not, because he was hurt. Is he going to be a year from now or 2 years from now? No, this exact moment on the planet. And it's proven by facts and stats, right? You see a 50-50-90 is what he's doing in the postseason. Nobody's doing that. 50% from three, 50% from the field, 50+%, right? And 90+% from the free throw line. So far in this series, he's shooting 43% from three, over 50% from the field, 90% from the free throw line, and oh yeah, he's averaging over 30 points per game. Not to mention both games led to blowouts in which he's lost time. He didn't play in the fourth quarter in game two. Did not take a second in the fourth quarter in the round two against your toughest competition yet, at least on the Eastern Conference Finals. Bodes well for this Brooklyn Nets team. And then you get Blake Griffin, who, yes, he only shot 3 of 4 in some nasty putback poster dunks over Giannis, to an extent over Giannis, but he's an Energizer bunny. He's jumping on the ground. He's not maybe edgy enough to be the Dennis Rodman of this team, if you will, but he clearly was, sucking his way out of Detroit, if you will. He's found some new energy in the postseason. You saw Bruce Brown, who checked in game one after 40-something seconds of Harden injury. He started this game and he played very well. He gave them 27 hard minutes, and that's with a blowout. He shot 6 of 10. He had 6 boards. He contributed in other ways. I would expect him to start again. When you're looking at this team and their minutes, and we can pull up their minutes right now onto the screen, I'm projecting some big minutes here. I'm projecting 40 burgers, as you can see. All the way to the right of the screen is my minutes projections. And that's because all the starters in the last game checked out with 9 minutes to go, except Durant, who checked out with 12, and that's including Bruce Brown, who was on the court in the fourth quarter, looking to probably close out that game. And if you go down a little bit more, you'll start to see from game one that all the starters checked out with 3.5 minutes to go. And a lot of those guys were on pace to play, like Kyrie, 39-40 minutes. Joe Harris, 36-37 minutes, and so on and so forth. So if anything, I might be under-projecting guys like Blake Griffin, who could be in line to play 33, 34, 35 minutes if the game stays close and he's closing it all the way out. Now, the one thing in this minutes rotation that I think can be a little bit wonky is, one, depending on what happens with Mike James, I have him at 24 minutes. I think that might be a minute or two too high, but we saw Tyler Johnson only play blowout run in the last game. He didn't play for the first 3 quarters, where it was actually maybe not competitive, but maybe the outcome of the game could have swung with a 30-0 run from Milwaukee. But I have Tyler Johnson in for a couple minutes in this one. I don't really know what his role is going to be moving forward. Clearly does not seem like they need him by any accounts. But right now for Brooklyn, they're easy to break down. We don't have to go as in-depth. They're making their shots. They're shooting fantastic. They shot 50% from 3 in that last game, 86% from the line, compared to Milwaukee, who shot 29% from 3 and, 44% from the line. And when that happens, and when it happens early and often in a game, you get absolutely blown out. 49 points at one point is absolutely atrocious, but that's what's going to happen. So early on right now from Brooklyn, my interests are going to be from a DFS perspective, and then we can get into props and that type of stuff as well. But from a DFS perspective, I would rank Brooklyn today as Bruce Brown, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, Kyrie Irving, Mike James, and Joe Harris are kind of like a toss-up for your 5th option there, and Shamet is barely in a player pool. I don't have any interest in Tyler Johnson, who I don't know if he even plays in this game, or Nicholas Claxton. So that's where Brooklyn's at. I currently do not have any props from Brooklyn. Brooklyn comes into this one as a 3.5-point underdog. If you want to know where the public's going to put their money, everybody's going to be betting on Brooklyn. And I'm not telling you it's a bad idea, because the way that they've been looking right now seems hard for Milwaukee to even stay close in a game. But Milwaukee going back home as 3 to 3.5-point favorites. This series opened up as being a series that looked to go 6 or 7 with James Harden healthy. So I know what we've seen the last 2 days, but the last 2 days for the most part has just been a lot of elite shooting, which is going to happen with Brooklyn, and no shooting from Milwaukee, which is probably not going to happen. Expect closer games moving forward. I don't have a bet yet on this game, but I would lean Milwaukee minus 3.5. So now we can get to the Milwaukee side, where there's a lot more to talk about than Brooklyn. And look, you can start it off with the fact that they never led in game 2, and they stunk up the joint a big amount. I mean, Middleton starts 0 of 8 in that game. Giannis, yet again, is shooting jump shots and not getting to the basket. He tried to get to the basket early, and somehow Blake Griffin stopped him a couple of times. The only guy who was shooting for them, 2 of 2 from three-pointers, 6 points in the first quarter, a couple of boards. Brook Lopez, immediately after he makes his second three, they check him out for Bobby Portis, who was nothing in game 1, a minus 17 in his time up until the blowout run when he cut it down to like minus 4 artificially on an 11-toe run when all the scrubs were in the game. They seem to now be running an 8-man rotation because Jeff Teague was really not involved. So if you take out the blowout run, Jeff Teague, who played 6 minutes and bricked 2 shots and played no defense in game 1, yes, he was a complete negative for them, and I don't know where he's not going to be a negative in this series. Offers nothing on defense and very little on offense compared to the Pat Connaughtons of the world and Bryn Forbes. Yeah, I don't think you see Jeff Teague in this one. I'm expecting an 8-man rotation, which means big minutes for the starters, and we can see those minutes right now on the screen. These are my projected minutes. I have Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday all at 39 minutes. I'm not shocked in game 2, where if you lose this one, you're basically dead, right? You might be dead in the water already, it seems, but you're definitely dead if you're down 3-0. You're going to be seeing potentially 40-plus minutes out of these guys. And like I said, Middleton in that last game, and I'm going to pull up what they're doing so far in the postseason. Middleton in that last game shot 7 of 20. Not good. He started 0 of 8, so when you consider after that, he shot 7 of 12. Not too bad if there's some saving grace, but Middleton has been bad in this series. Now, Middleton is not going to continue to shoot in this series in the upper 20 percentages overall. He's going to shoot a little bit better than that, right? If you want to see what he's doing so far in the postseason, even having a bad postseason with those 2 games factored in, he's still shooting 48%. That's because this is a 55 to 60% overall shooter and a man who starts to make 40% or so of his 3-point attempts. He's a very good shooter, but can you take into account what are some things here? Well, he was playing on the road, a hostile environment, not used to be having fans in the stands as a shooter all that much. And oh yeah, also there's probably some nerves out there, and maybe there is something of it either being a small sample and none of this bad shooting really matters, or 2, he's just a little bit shook in the postseason on the road. Either way, he ended up shooting terribly yet again, and they ended up shooting now averaging through 2 games 24% on a decent sample of 60-plus threes. This Milwaukee team, they're gonna have to make more threes. They're gonna have to get to the free throw line more and not shoot so far like 50% from the free throw line in the series. And oh yeah, Giannis, you have to get more aggressive. Stop taking threes and jump shots to hit the front of the rim and start getting to the basket. That's the way that you can turn at least this game 3 around. But I think you're going to have to see adjustments today. Like, it's 2 games into the PJ Tucker experiment when now there's no Harden, so it's not like you need defense that much more on the court. But the PJ Tucker experiment on Kevin Durant is not working at all. It's just not. I mean, there's nothing stopping Durant. He's going to shoot over Tucker. He's getting by Tucker, as you saw in that last game. Tucker is a step too slow on him. This experiment's not working. So instead of having a 0 on offense with PJ Tucker out there, who's also giving you close to a 0 on defense, why not just try Pat Connaughton out there? Why not at least just try Bryn Forbes, somebody who's a 3-point shooter and can get his own shot, which PJ Tucker cannot. PJ Tucker has to stand in the corner to get his own shot. And oh yeah, he's not really contributing much on offense so far. Considering that PJ Tucker has shot 25% on his 12 3-point attempts in the postseason, I don't think he's giving you anything on that side of the ball. So I expect, or at least I think you should have some adjustments. You're coming home down 2-0. You can't just keep running the same lineup out there and getting blown out of the gym because you're not making adjustments. And oh yeah, the head coaching job is probably on the hot seat right now in Milwaukee. At least try to show some innovation. Throw a Pat Connaughton or a Bryn Forbes into the starting lineup. I think it should be Pat Connaughton because he can at least go on Joe Harris, and he can definitely defend Joe Harris, so it's not a complete 0 on defense by any means. And I would rather have Pat Connaughton's somewhat reliable offense, can get you some rebounds as well, especially on the offensive side, more so than Bryn Forbes. So some versatility there out of a starter, which is what you're trying to get from Tucker, 3s and D, just not working out. So go Pat Connaughton. I would expect adjustments. I think you must make adjustments here heading back home. If that's the case, Pat Connaughton becomes more of an advantage point for us in DFS and the player prop markets. So I'm expecting right now Milwaukee to go to the line more. I'm expecting them to not just make 4 of 9 right now. They're shooting 44% overall from the free throw line in game 2 and like 48% in this series. It simplifies it down to this, and this is how we can close the book before we give you my favorite plays from Milwaukee in this side of the ball. Simplifies it down to as simple as you want to get, right? A supply and demand for businesses, that's how simple it is to get. Brooklyn's making all their shots, or most of them, right? And Milwaukee's not making any shots, and then the game fucking blows out. So you could simplify it down to that. Right now on Milwaukee, if I had to choose my priorities, it would be in this order: Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Giannis, Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, and Bryn Forbes. Those 7 guys in that order. Now, I do have a prop in for today, and that would be Chris Middleton's total points, and we can go over to that now on the sponsor of the program. If you want to check it out, the sponsor of the program is Prize Picks. On these single game slates like showdowns where it stinks to play showdown slates, these 2 game slates where it's definitely better than showdown slates, I get a little bit more action down. Most of my action down right now is going into player prop markets, in the betting markets, specialty props, things like that. So right now, we'll talk about the other guys and the other props that I have. I have 4 props early on. One of them is Chris Middleton over 37.5 fantasy points. You can take the fantasy point lines over on PrizePicks down below. If you sign up using the code SAL or the link in the description, both is preferred. Any money you put in, your first deposit, they'll give you double it, free money. So why are you not taking free money? Why are you not gambling a little bit with some free money, enjoying the game in a different way? That's not trying to make the exact same lineup as everybody else in DFS these days. So right now, I have Chris Middleton projecting out for 41.9 points. That is significantly higher than what this line is at, 4.4 points higher. That's enough. Normally when it hits 3 or more, I hit it, and I hit this one early on. So go ahead, get the over 37.5 while it lasts right now. We'll touch on the other player props that I have as we get to those teams and those players, but that code SAL, look, what are you guys doing out there? What are you ladies and gentlemen and fellas doing out there? If you're playing DFS today and you don't have action down where you can get free wagers over on PrizePicks, yes, a limited time only, use that code SAL. Come on now. So now we go to the second game today, and there's a lot to break down, especially from both sides of the ball, but the Clippers, well, first of all, Mike Conley is questionable today. We'll see what happens there. He was nowhere near playing, or at least he's not on track to play with his hamstring. I'm not projecting him in to play today. PrizePicks is projecting him in, which gives you a lot of benefits because you can take the overs on some other guys like Jordan Clarkson and Bojan Bogdanovic and take some advantages there, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's start with the Clippers side of the ball. So in this game, which was very close down the stretch, at some point the Clippers were up pretty big because Utah was missing 20 straight shots. Yes, they missed 20 straight shots at one point. That's not going to happen again. The Clippers or Utah only scored 18 points in the first quarter, and they ended up totaling in this game after that through the final 3 quarters over 100 total points. So they played very well after that, after they stopped missing shots. But let's talk about the Clippers rotations here, and we'll show the minutes in a second. These Clippers rotations are ridiculous from game 1. And some people said, oh, Sal, you were completely off on Zubac, completely wrong. I was wrong on Zubac. I wasn't expecting 20-plus minutes. I also wasn't expecting Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Reggie Jackson to get in foul trouble in the first half and really the first quarter. So when they start to come off the court more, who knows where the rotations are going to go. Now, I don't think Zubac was directly checking in for Reggie Jackson, but for Paul George and or Kawhi, there's a chance he got some minutes there. I mean, when DeMarcus Cousins plays 4 minutes and gets 3 personal fouls and a turnover in his 4 minutes, terrible. But when he's getting 4 minutes in a postseason game that means something in game 1, there's something to that. There's also fatigue to it, right? There's fatigue when they just played a game 7 2 days ago, went 7 games. This Utah team is coming off of a couple of days of rest now. So when there's fatigue going into it, Zubac, who wasn't playing in that series, he's got fresher legs. And you take into account the foul trouble. Now, do I think he was going to play 0 minutes? No, that was pretty clear he wasn't. But he played well, and he took advantage of the opportunity that he had. I don't think he was scheduled to play 20.5 minutes in this game. He also got in foul trouble, so chances are he could have played 22 minutes in this game. But foul trouble is basically the name of the game for this team, and then certain guys taking advantage of their time like Zubac. But let's talk about it. Pat Beverly checks in. He plays 6 minutes early, and that's it. He's clearly gimpy, but I don't know what they're doing there with his rotation. He didn't get in foul trouble. He just played 6 minutes. Went on Donovan Mitchell. It kind of worked out, but that was it. They just kind of went away from it. Not too sure what was going on there. Kennard closes this game out. Kennard plays 29.5 minutes because Luke Kennard in this game played very well. He shot 7 of 9 overall and 4 of 6 from three-point land. So when that happens, when there's guys in foul trouble, like Reggie Jackson, who fouled out in this game, believe it or not, and you're shooting the ball well, you'll stay on the court more so than Terrence Mann, who only played in this game 10 minutes. Rajon Rondo played 28 minutes, and they were pointless minutes. I don't think Rajon Rondo, you should think that those minutes are going to stay. If you're watching any analysis today that tells you, oh, Rajon Rondo, I'm projecting him for 28 to 30 to 26 to 25 minutes, you should probably stop watching that analysis or paying for it. I have Rajon Rondo today projected, and we'll see the minutes after we get through all these wonky rotations for 18 minutes today, and that might even be high because Reggie Jackson only played 17 minutes in that last game. And you can see all the wonky minutes above my head right now. The red is when these players are playing. The blue is when they're off the court. So Reggie Jackson, we can click on his name right now. He doesn't have any personal fouls when he checks in and plays 6 minutes, but then he gets into some pretty steep foul trouble, as in the second quarter he picks up 2 personal fouls, he checks out, and then in the third quarter he starts the quarter out, so he starts the second half, plays just 3 minutes because he picks up his 3rd and 4th foul, and then he later on checks out when he only plays 2.5 minutes in the 4th quarter. So because of foul trouble in the second half, Reggie Jackson only played 5 minutes, which is less than what he played in the first quarter alone. So obviously Reggie Jackson is going to get more run. We could look at what happened with Kawhi Leonard here. Kawhi Leonard right here in the first quarter picks up 2 personal fouls. He checks out with about 3 or 2 minutes more than he would have played, or less than he would have played in the first quarter. And then he also picks up his 3rd personal foul with about 45 seconds left in the second half. So Kawhi Leonard misses about 3 minutes here, you can say. Similar things happen for one Paul George. So Reggie Jackson only playing 5 second half minutes because of that foul trouble is not something I expect again, and you saw Rajon Rondo benefit and play a lot of minutes there. I'm not expecting that this time around. We talked about Zubac. We talked about Cousins entering and playing just 4 minutes and getting in foul trouble. So we can kind of say we have no idea where these rotations are going to go, but I think we could actually give you some better analysis and breakdown into it. I think Reggie Jackson is going to get more of his full run. Kawhi and Paul George are going to get their full run. Marcus Morris played 33 minutes, and I feel good about that. The one piece where I'm thinking, okay, where is this going to go, is Nicholas Batum, who wasn't in foul trouble, and I don't really know what to say much about that. So the one question mark is Batum. Is he just going to play 22 or 24 minutes, or is he going to get back up to playing 34 minutes in this game and this series. Now, Luke Kennard obviously took advantage of some Reggie Jackson foul trouble and some other guys foul trouble. And when you're making your shots, there's no reason to take off a guy making his shots, because the way this Clippers teams works is Kawhi gets to the elbow, Paul George gets to the elbow. They try to go to the rim. They couldn't get to the rim, and you probably won't much because Rudy Gobert is in this game and on this team. He's the best rim protector in the league. So Paul George wasn't going to the rim as much, which means you're not going to have as many easy shots. But when they are trying to go to the rim, when they are in the paint, you dish it out to 3, and Luke Kennard was making those shots, 4 of 6 in the game. So now I'll pull up my Clippers minutes so far in this one. The only thing that you're not seeing on the screen is I have Terrence Mann for 10 minutes and Pat Beverly for 4, but the Clippers minutes right now, you can see them on the screen. So I'm giving Reggie Jackson 30 minutes. Not shocked if he plays more. I'm giving right now Rondo 16, Luke Kennard 23. He only got more minutes because he played well in that game, but he was on pace anyways after playing 10 and a half minutes in the first half to play about 21 minutes in this game. I gave him 23. If you want to give him 22 and an extra minute to Reggie Jackson, that is completely fine. Marcus Morris up and down in the postseason continues. He's a 50% three-point shooter during the regular season. He shot 1 of 9 in this game. He shot 4 of 14 overall. Marcus Morris, I think, will continue to shoot better in this series as it goes on. Right now, I do not have Marcus Morris in a player pool, but his over-under of 21 looks pretty damn good. As I've mentioned already, I'm lower on Rondo here. I have him at only 16 minutes. I only have Rondo projected out today for around 12.5 fantasy points. So I took the under 15 fantasy points on Rondo, and we're going to correlate that because if Rondo's not playing minutes, it means Reggie Jackson is playing minutes. I don't think he'll foul out on this one. I don't think he'll only play 5 second half minutes because of fouls. I have the over 21 for Reggie Jackson, as I gave him 30 minutes to play today. I think he can play more than that, and 25 fantasy points. So there's 3 out of the 4 right now that I've taken in the prop markets that you can as well over on Prize Picks. Let's get back to the minutes now. So in this game, people were saying Kawhi didn't play well. I mean, he didn't have a lot of volume, but he shot 47% from the field. He just didn't take a lot of threes, so I guess you got to take more threes. He finished well at the basket, even against Rudy Gobert, so above average in the league. So I think Kawhi played fine in this game. It's just the fact that he didn't go berserk like he was doing a couple times in the Dallas series. Rudy Gobert, though, really did halt the other elite player on the Clippers, if you will, Paul George. Rudy Gobert's presence was felt around the basket. Paul George did not go to the basket as much. He settled for jump shots and threes, in which he shot pretty poorly on those in game 1. He shot in this game 3 of 14, Paul George, 21%. A lot of that had to do with the shot selection that he had. That could be something that sticks in this series. Now, we talked about all the foul trouble, or early fouls for Kawhi. Missed out on about 3 minutes for him, so I gave Kawhi 39 minutes. Paul George missed out on a couple of fouls from having 2 early fouls, a couple of minutes by having 2 early fouls, so I gave him 39, and you can see the rest on the screen. Marcus Morris, I think he plays 32 to 34, and I don't think he shoots 1 of 9 from three-point again, which leads to a better play for him today. But that's where I'm at on the Clippers. That's the whole breakdown of Milwaukee rotations. I don't think Rondo's minutes are stable. I think Luke Kennard's definitely depend on his shooting compared to him and Nicholas Batum. Who is on the court is who is shooting better, and Kennard is the player who's going to shoot better. But here's the thing. Luke Kennard was getting absolutely hunted on defense by Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell, who, as we get into Utah, scored 45 points. He was getting hunted. So if Luke Kennard is not shooting well, he's a complete negative on the court because of his defense. So when you're shooting well and you're also getting cooked on defense, well, it kind of balances out and they need your shooting, right? But when you're not shooting well and you're getting cooked by Donovan Mitchell on defense, well, you're probably not going to stay on the court as much, and they're going to try and put Pat Beverly back out there, or maybe even Rondo for a couple minutes, or more likely Nicholas Batum, who they've been going with so far in the postseason. So my priorities right now on the Clippers are going to be in this order: Kawhi, Marcus Morris, Paul George, Zubac, Luke Kennard, and Reggie Jackson would be in that order, my 6. Now let's close it out with Utah right now, who, again, they do have a questionable Mike Conley, who I'm currently not projecting in today. If he gets projected in, we can update that later today. And if you're a patron, which you get the projections, ranks, the lineup optimizer for DFS, the fantasy projections and player pools and things like that will help you for fantasy, and also the prop markets. You can check it all out down below over on Patreon. Linked in the description. Sign up over there. You're going to get the best industry prices and increase your chances of winning. Reduce your research time. Discord access as well. Sports betting Discords, props Discords, every single sports for DFS Discords. Check it all out. So Donovan Mitchell was absolutely elite in that last game. It's pretty obvious and pretty clear. He ends up now in his last 12 playoff games per Locked On Jazz with David Locke. His last 12 playoff performances, he has 4 40-plus point games and 2 50 burgers, if you remember last year from the bowl. He's shooting 47% from 3 right now and over 85% from the free throw line. Donovan Mitchell has been absolutely elite. He is a stone cold killer assassin in the postseason right now over the last couple of years. Mitchell, I expect to continue to play big minutes. He played 36 plus in this game, closer to 37. I have Mitchell right now at 38 minutes of play. I have Mitchell grading out right now as one of the best plays, if not the best pay-up option, at just $8,900. He is an elite player right now, not even priced at $9,000. So Mitchell, for me, is definitely my favorite player in Utah. He's somebody that I don't have any prop market stuff on, but I do like him a lot for fantasy purposes. We can pull up Utah's minutes right now, and then we can show you what these guys are doing in the postseason so far. So they're basically running an 8-man rotation. Me only got like 7 minutes of run, but outside of that, they were running an 8-man rotation with low minutes for guys like Derek Favors, just getting the backup center minutes, and low minutes for Georges Niang. So for the most part, with no Mike Conley in this game, you saw 5 guys take on big minutes, which is why in this one right here, I basically have 5 guys taking on big minutes of 30-plus minutes of play. Gobert got in a little bit of foul trouble early. He would have played 34, 35 minutes. We gave him 34 here. I'm expecting to not see Mike Conley out there, which leads big minutes for Clarkson, O'Neal, and Bojan. But we have to talk about O'Neal and Bojan, and this is a very important point. In this game, Bojan Bogdanovic, especially late, guarded Kawhi Leonard, and he guarded him pretty well, which is something you saw during the regular season as well as you can, right? We also saw Royce O'Neal, who guarded Paul George in the regular season pretty well, stay on Paul George. And I like that. I like what we got to see there. He ended up doing very well against Paul George, and Paul George not being able to go to the basket because of Rudy Gobert also halts him to go just 3 of 14 in the game. But in this game, and the more important factor is, since those guys were able to guard them at least decent, they saw big minutes, especially Bojan. Bojan saw big minutes because Mike Conley was out one, so that's going to affect it somewhat, but because of his defense. So Bojan Bogdanovic, especially if Mike Conley is out again, expect major minutes. I'm giving him 37 after he played 38 in that last game. And then 36 minutes out of Royce O'Neal, who is playing good defense and is a quality two-way player for this team and very, very mature of a defender. Give him 36 minutes again, which puts those guys firmly in play today. And then Joe Ingles, who has been struggling in the postseason so far to a major extent, he's just going to keep getting big minutes, so he's going to be in play at 32 minutes of play. So Bojan, Royce O'Neal, and Rudy Gobert. Gobert didn't do much on the offensive end, but he was very, very much a problem on defense, forcing not so much Kawhi, but Paul George to take different types of shots, which is going to alter a game and potentially alter a series. So we can show you, before we kind of give you my overall favorite interest from Utah and then the slate today, we can show you what this team in Utah has been doing in the postseason so far, because we haven't seen Mitchell much this season. We can show you what they're doing from a just overall per 36 on the season, on the postseason so far. So far in the postseason, you're getting Royce O'Neal to outproduce what he did in the regular season, and that's while playing more minutes and doing more defense, so it's somewhat stable, leading this team with 208 minutes. He's getting 0.8 fantasy points per minute. You like to see that. Bojan's picking up bigger minutes as well because of his defense and his shooting, especially with no Conley out there. So what you're seeing right here is the 2 big things I want to point out, or I guess 3. How bad Joe Ingles is playing in the postseason. He's around a point per minute producer with Mike Conley off the court. He's like 0.9 when Mike Conley's playing. 0.57. Like, this is very bad. This is extremely, extremely poor. This is like PJ Tucker levels of you are playing absolutely terrible. That's clearly going to come up. I don't expect Joe Ingles to shoot 28% from 3 and only 45% from the floor. So expect that to come up for Joe Ingles. Don't be saying, Joe Ingles just stinks because he's stunk in like his last 3 to 4 postseason games. You're clearly looking at a small sample there. But Donovan Mitchell in 156 minutes, which is like 4 to 5 postseason games, right? This postseason so far, he sat out that first game in the first series, which he was mad about. 30% assist percentage, 1.53 fantasy points per minute. A 1.53 fantasy point per minute metric is basically Luka Doncic right now. That's Luka Doncic's regular season this year. I'm not projecting him that today. I'm projecting Donovan Mitchell for around 1.3 fantasy points per minute at 37 minutes, which does give him a lot, almost 49 fantasy points, but pretty damn good to see on 38% usage. Elite. Jordan Clarkson getting 30% usage right now. So we'd like to see that. The last player, the last piece of the puzzle, I already said Bojan's going to play a lot of minutes today. This gets even better if there's no Conley. Either way, he's going to play a lot of minutes. I took the over 25 on Bojan. If I project Conley out, I have Bojan for over 31 points. If I project Conley in, I have Bojan for over 27. So either way, I like it. It just gets better if there's no Conley out there today. So my priorities right now in Utah, and I like taking a lot of guys from the Nets-Milwaukee game because the team total and the game totals there are so much higher that Vegas is putting out. It's much, much more points inducive. So I do like taking spots from there, but it's hard to not say how much value is on this Utah team when I just told you if there's no Mike Conley, they're only running 8 bodies out there for the most part, and really only 5 are getting significant minutes. So it's hard to get away from those guys when they're not yet appropriately priced. So in this order, and I like these guys a lot, Donovan Mitchell, Bojan Bogdanovic, Rudy Gobert, Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal. Those are my 5 favorites. Jordan Clarkson isn't a player pool. He's just priced up, and so is Derek Favors. He's just not seeing a lot of minutes. So those right now are my favorite plays from Utah. To go to my top overall plays for DFS today, we can go to the early interest, my top 5 overall yeses on the slate, and you can find all the rest of the plays over on Patreon, but these are my top 5 yeses in this order. This is point per dollar wise, so bang for your buck plays. Bruce Brown, Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Donovan Mitchell, and Kevin Durant are my 5 point per dollar bang for your buck plays today. Now on this 2-game slate, I currently do have in a player pool, I have in a player pool 27 players, and I have priorities on 15 guys. So 15 guys are really going to be what I'm trying to build around. If you want to see those 15, their projections, where they rank out completely, my interest for SuperDraft and things like that as well. Minutes projections, a whole lot of other stuff, the optimizer Discord. You can check it out down below on Patreon. So thank you for tuning in today. This was a lot to break down because there's a lot to break down, especially for this Clippers-Utah game. Best of luck. If you're looking for straight up betting lines today, I am leaning -3.5 today for Milwaukee, and I'm going to be taking the Clippers, where you can find them in some spots at +4. Got them at +3.5 myself. So that's where I'm at. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to support the sponsor of the program and take those player props over on Prize Picks. That is all linked down below. See you later on for a live stream. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell so you know when we go live later today. And thank you for tuning in. Happy National Iced Tea Day. And it's not iced tea, it's coffee. But like the motherfucking mug says, be kind today.